Good afternoon all. I hope you had a very good tea. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge our country, the Mulwina people of the Nipaluna country and their elders past, sadly none to ever emerge again, along with the First Nation elders and people who may be here today. In the local lingo, you can say ya to say hello. So I'd like to introduce the esteemed panel, and first one is Lani. Do you want to say a little bit about your OSM work and how you and what you do in Fiji and OSM Fiji?
Oh yes, hello everyone, it's me again, Lani.
Yeah.
So for the past 5 years I've been involved in OSM Fiji, the establishment of the group, and also doing work using mapping, either using HOT, humanitarian OpenStreetMap, and also using OSM maps, yeah.
And sorry, what's HOT OSM? What's that?
Oh, so it's actually kind of a tasking manager which you actually create projects and you can start mapping. So one of our project was actually to map the buildings of for the whole of Fiji. I think currently probably it's 98% mapped. So that was one of the first project we ever did using humanitarian OpenStreetMap tasking manager.
Yeah, and at the moment, HOT OSM have an urgent call out for people who can map Valencia. So if you've got a little bit of spare time between now and tea tonight, just jump on and just do a little bit in HOT OSM for Valencia, because they need all the help they can get. Next one is Kate, and we like to introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Fickas. I'm the Director of the Imagery and Remote Sensing Solutions at Esri. I've been there for about 14 months. Before that, I was at USGS and UC Santa Barbara and the US EPA. I have a background in imagery and remote sensing. At Esri, I work to be the liaison between the general remote sensing and GIS community. GIS community that I call imagery curious, so getting as many people indoctrinated into imagery and remote sensing as possible. And then I also run our research and development in terms of case studies that we kick up for imagery and remote sensing at Esri with different stakeholders.
Oh, excellent. And Natasha, we first met you in Auckland, did we not?
Yes, last year.
And you so enjoyed it, you've come back for another one. So
yes, very much.
A little bit about yourself.
So, hi everyone. So currently with TomTom, holding a role of manager of the East Asia Pacific region, and we're looking at more of the content of the map and rolling out our new strategy of incorporating OpenStreetMap into our products. Previously to that, I was working on projects across Africa. So that's a bit of a brief introduction.
Well, thank you. And last but not least is Graeme, and I get a lot of emails from Graeme, normally as his position. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Graeme.
G'day all, Graeme Fitzpatrick. Been with OpenStreetMap, so I'm not a professional geo person in any way, I am just a mapper. Been there since 2011, so 13 years now. Effectively a moderator with the data working group for the last 2 years, and also been appointed as the Oceania representative to the OSMF advisory board. And as part of that, our dream is to get OSM Oceania up and running with plans to hopefully get mapping working across all the smaller nations in the Pacific, and including, of course, Australia and New Zealand. Big task.
Very, very good. Graeme has been, how long have you been involved?
13 years.
Yeah, so just new on the block. So. Now, I'd like everyone to stand up because we've had tea. If you could all stand up briefly. And stay standing if you've used OSM in any way of reading it. So maybe it's on a TomTom map or something similar, or a Mapbox. Everyone standing? Yep. Keep standing if you edited OpenStreetMap. Ooh. And keep standing if you're a member of the OpenStreetMap Foundation.
Oh,
I think John...
I think that's the one.
So what we can see is we'd love to see a little bit more on the working in the OSM area. Graeme, what happens when there's a bit of a conflict in mapping? How does that operate?
We, the data working group, would prefer the community to sort things out themselves. If you see something that you think is wrong, talk to the person that mapped it. Their details are all there on OSM. You can contact them via change set comments and just talk to them and say, hey, thanks for doing this, but this is the issue. If you can't resolve it between yourselves, go to one of the resources, the community forum, mailing lists, Discord is a popular place, and ask everybody else, what do you think about this? Because if nothing can be resolved, and then you come to the DWG to say, this is a problem, we can look at all that history and say, right, yes, we agree with the vast majority of people, sorry, you're wrong. And at that stage, we can make changes, and in extreme cases, we can make that person go away.
Yeah.
We have the power.
I don't know how to go on from that. Kate, you're Esri, and now you have integrated a fair bit of OSM. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Esri's been a supporter of OSM for over a decade. The title of this panel was, how to use crowdsourcing but still maintain business operations. And so I've been thinking about that, and really I think crowdsourcing like OSM is at the foundation of being able to iterate on the feature extraction and the precision of OSM. So the majority of our users use something like OSM. Usually it is OSM for their base maps. They might just be making something simple, a map to show their manager or their stakeholder. The GIS community is really invested in being able to have accurate data. Esri's also recently integrated things like 3D buildings, OpenStreetMap 3D trees. So features that might be expensive to map otherwise on your own or have those base maps are available to users. So it's something where the more that the community puts in, the more that Esri puts in, and hopefully that's a positive feedback loop.
And you had a good visualisation of some data up there on the screen at your desk. Do you want to tell us a bit about the
Yeah, so we have, in addition to OpenStreetMap, another crowdsourced repository we have is our Living Atlas of the World. It's the largest geospatial database of geospatial data, both imagery, vector, machine learning models, deep learning packages, and it's curated by Esri, so we have a lot of Esri created data, but then it's also a place for users once they've made maps or data sets to be able to house their data and serve it out to other users, and then they can get feedback, understand the value of their data, combine it with other maps. Most of it is open and available without having a license. And a lot of it you can click on it and view it right in our map viewer to see if it's the type of data that you want. So getting that feedback from your community and the crowdsourcing that goes into building that repository is really valuable. So it's a good way to get people hooked on things like imagery early if they see others doing really creative things that they maybe didn't know were possible.
Thanks. Natasha, how are you using OpenStreetMap at TomTom?
So we've taken a new approach about almost a year and a half ago. whereby we are diversifying our map layers, whereby we increase and introduce OpenStreetMap, especially into our base layers. So you're looking at real road geometry, your visualization features, and then we combine that on top of our proprietary layers, and then we offer a much more richer, diverse product offering to those that are interested in building their services on top of that.
And do you feed back any comments from your users to say that that road doesn't exist, or that road's closed or moved, or the map's incorrect, or?
We do try and do that as well, as much as possible, wherever we can, through our quality checks, have that feedback loop open to our suppliers.
Now, Lani, you've organised a whole lot of training sessions in Fiji. How have you gone about that, and how have you recruited there?
A training session in Fiji. So, do you mean recruiting in people that are doing the training, or recruiting mappers?
Including the mappers.
Oh yes. So for us, we actually, while building up the community, so we have vehicle for information. So we got social media forums, which we actually post up and request for volunteers and also mappers. So that's how we got on board a lot of volunteers, especially in doing verification work around the CDB area. And also, once we have the task set up, so we actually host mapathons. I think we started during COVID-19 because we got the hot Facebook micro grant, and we actually started off doing online mapping using Tasking Manager, and it was easier, because everyone was locked down at home, so we could actually do 1 to 2 hours mapping together. Then the rest of the day you could actually map from home, or you have spare time. But once after COVID-19, that when we had to go back to face, we kind of, not really difficult, but found it hard, especially looking because of all the restriction. But we've managed to actually find venues at USB, the university. So we actually collaborated, and that's how we got venues. And we actually did expression of interest of people who were wanting to be mappers, especially using hot Tasking Manager.
Excellent. We've been talking a lot about one part of the forest of open source, of OpenStreetMap, but there's GDAL, QGIS, a whole raft of open source tools that we use and we need to support. How does business actually go and support those initiatives, and to make sure that everything's kept up to date and it's secure, and that it's suitable and fit for purpose in the years to come? Anyone?
I think by maintaining open standards and making sure that we're keeping things updated is a key touch point to making sure that the community stays in line with the latest and greatest. And I think, between any of those excellent initiatives that you've mentioned, a community coming together and really testing it out, crowdsourcing, feedback is the best way to understand where pain points are and where we need to improve. And for the business aspect of it, Esri uses GDAL and funds GDAL for that very reason, because it's so robust from community feedback and that crowdsourcing.
And you've really opened up Python to everyone within the Esri stack, and a whole lot of other tools. And has that been accepted really well, or?
Yeah, I think it's just starting to take off. I'll talk more about this tomorrow in my keynote, but the sweet spot for me is a user not having to choose something like Python or JavaScript or open source versus commercial software, and having them being interoperable. So gearing towards Esri software, easily integrating Python packages that we use every day as data scientists, but also if Python is intimidating, start in a GUI world and start in pointy clicky and end in scripty, if that's where the journey takes you. So yeah, to me the collaboration and the integration is much greater than trying to create a false dichotomy of having to choose.
In OpenStreetMap, one of the key benefits of having a really good satellite imagery is being able to actually map down to the property and knowing whether it's a kitchen out the back or it's a house. Is there any progress in improving some of the imagery, or I noticed that Andrew Harvey, who's here, has spent a lot of time getting the state data in there, or the imagery. But yeah, Esri is always a fairly decent layer to map from.
Yeah, one of our biggest pushes this year has been a way for users to easily grab commercial satellite data, which we're hearing so much about. We heard this morning that the VC world and the commercial satellite world is pushing a lot of the direction that we're going in Earth observation and imagery and remote sensing. And for myself, I want to put that narrative back in users' hands. So yeah, we now have a way to easily draw a polygon, draw it yourself, or integrate a shapefile and be able to task a satellite. We're now down to 15-minute latency from task to map. And then you can integrate that back into your Python environment if you want. And there's down to 15 centimeter RGB to hyperspectral, multispectral, soon to be LiDAR from space. And I think a lot of that has huge implications for the OpenStreetMap community, especially if we can find a way to get that imagery donated to people who want to use it to update important features, especially in areas like Oceania, where data can be so rare because of clouds. Tasking it when it's a sunny, beautiful day could go a long way towards...
Just like today.
Yeah, it shined just for us. But yeah, that's the goal.
Natasha, do you find that the peri-urban areas and the CBDs are really well mapped, and then you go out a little bit further and you find that there might be discrepancies in the data?
Yes, we do find that quite a lot. The urban areas are very well mapped, so that's where we're trying to reach more to the community, might be locally based. I know, for example, in Australia, they're quite diversely spread across the different states, and try and engage those communities and map in the area. And we're trying from our perspective, to try and share some of our data back. So we still collect probed data and sharing that back to the community, so that if they take the imagery and the probe data and align it, and can better visualize some of the rural areas.
So when I get my new EV car, do I get a single download of a map, or is it updated, or is there a little bit of in the licensing you get regular updates, or you just get the initial map?
It does depend on which option of our product you would take. If you, for example, use our mobile app, you can get it instantaneously as it's updated. If you do go and take it from one of the OEM car manufacturers, they then have their own licensing in terms of when the map is purchased and then made available to end users.
So we had a bridge in Western Australia, Fitzroy Crossing Bridge, closed for 9 months. Does that cause you a lot of impact if that bridge is removed from OSM?
It does, but we have built mechanisms to check chain sets that happen. And if that is the case, the OSM is not the only source that we use, so we supplement that together with government data, etc., or third-party data, depending on what that feature is, to cover that gap if that does happen.
Now, Graeme and Lani, OSM is really sort of geared towards English speakers. Have you found issues with languages and just trying to encourage people to be comfortable in the ID or editor?
We with DWG do have issues with languages in purely and simply understanding exactly what the issue is and then replying to it, and the person who's raised it understanding what we're saying, because we're working through online translators. Unfortunately, we don't have people that can speak most of the languages in the world. So when you're working through an online translator, you are hoping that it has translated their comments correctly and then translated your response to it. And even some just little idioms that you'll say in just normal chatting day to day don't translate. I had something that I just made a comment, I don't remember what it was, but it translated that I am calling you a total liar. And sorry, that's not what I said. And translating English to Polish just didn't work. And even talking to another moderator who is Polish, he couldn't translate what I was trying to say just as a simple, okay, yeah, that's not quite right. He couldn't get it to translate. It's an issue. It can be an issue.
So OpenStreetMap has been sort of like the boisterous child, the adolescence out there. It's now become sort of a little bit more mature. Bing is using it as a base map. The open source Mapillary was bought by Meta. And so are we seeing a complete shift in business processes now? Anyone? Graeme, or you?
I can take it.
Yep.
I think we've definitely recognised the potential from it and the quality and the value of it, that we've pivoted our complete product offering around it going forward in our strategy. So we've definitely seen that value grow over the years.
I'd like to open it up to... sorry, Graeme.
Just one thing with that. One thing that has been mentioned is the speed of response of changes happening in OSM. When the bridge collapsed in Baltimore last year, was that last year? Early this year, whenever. When the bridge was hit by the ship in Baltimore, I saw the comment that within 28 minutes, OSM had been updated to say the bridge had been destroyed. All the routing had been changed to say that nobody could drive across there anymore. It was all done. And that was in the middle of the night. Mm. Yeah.
In emergencies, where we're now seeing with hot OSM, that the mapping there can be probably as quick as possible, really needing latest satellite data more often than not. But there have been lots of hackathons for bushfires in Victoria and Tasmania over the time. I'd like to open up to the floor for any questions. I think there's a mic there by Alex.
Nick.
Hi, maybe more of a question for Kate and sorry, from TomTom. How do you balance the frequency of updates in OpenStreetMap with the frequency of the data update in your products? So just on that previous point, like the bridge is collapsed is updating in OpenStreetMap, but how do you balance like bringing in the most fresh data from OpenStreetMap with not necessarily having a chance to like review that and jeopardize data in your products? Do you see that?
Yeah, in Esri we keep you can import OpenStreetMap OpenStreetMap native layer, or we have a duplicate of it that refreshes quite frequently. That's being checked. I'm not going to spit out a latency for what that is, but yeah, it does stay updated. And we also have a crowdsourcing tool so that for the Baltimore Bridge collapse, we can get satellite data in, and we can do deep learning feature extraction from the open source, like segment anything feature, the road extraction, and show how roads are impacted. We have a traffic layer. All of those are updated very frequently. They live in the living atlas, so you can bring them in as they're updated. So they don't live necessarily in a static desktop. They live in the cloud, and they can be updated as frequently as needed. But I'm not going to I don't know what our latency is.
Anyone
Sorry,
else?
Natasha, what do you think?
So we also bringing it in very dynamically, very quickly, and what we've developed processes is that puts those changes off onto like a holding bay, which then does a check that it's not vandalism, and then checks that it's a valid actual change. If it is what we consider vandalism, we will not apply that to our map. If we consider it as a proper update, it will go into the map. If we do have some inconsistencies, we're not sure for that update, then that would be handled by teams that would correspond with other sources that would verify the update.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lane from HOT, so the Humanitarian OpenStreetMap team, the question you asked before. So I just wanted to mention we indeed work mainly in low and middle income countries for open mapping for humanitarian causes, right? And one of the key challenges that we're still having is open imagery. It's like it's at this moment a bottleneck, like high resolution, open imagery to enable our communities around the world to map. And I know Esri is working on Living Atlas. For the countries where we're active in, it's still limited because, of course, the businesses are mainly in the Americas and Europe and Australia. But it's more a question to this community to open up imagery as much as possible, so that also we can leverage that imagery for mapping. I don't know if there's anyone in the room as well that wants to talk about potential solutions around that, because we've talked a lot about imagery, but in essence, right today, it's still very hard for HOT to access open imagery. Maxar changed their license last year, so we can't use that anymore. We're very reliant on a few satellite providers, and that's all fine after a disaster, like in Valencia, we do get the imagery, but if you want to do any preparedness for disasters, we need that imagery before the disaster.
I'm going to do that annoying thing and make a comment as well, in that it's not just access to imagery, but it's imagery with a license that allows you to create derived products from it. And so myself and Andrew actually over a number of years managed to finally convince the Tasmanian state government to add a little, we agree that the terms of Creative Commons means this, which means that then you can digitise OpenStreetMap features off the open data that the state gov release. So it's not even just enough to release imagery under common open licenses. It needs to have like a little caveat that says, yes, what you do is enough. And it'd be really great to go to some of these imagery providers and say, with the open stuff that you really want to be open, then make it open enough for digitising into OpenStreetMap and so on.
I think from the commercial world that we saw, I think it was over $200 billion spent on commercial satellites launched into space last year, and it's very little, barely touching in the millions this year. And what came in its place were what we call data aggregators or data brokers, and some are better than others, but some of them have figured out a way to get around the licensing so that once you have it and you're able to share it. And towards your point, I think having this under the umbrella of disaster response, not just being post-disaster or during disaster, but preparedness is probably a really nice and elegant way to start framing how to grab imagery and these data brokers could be a conduit to that point, because doing individual commercial satellite companies and figuring out their individual licensing is a huge headache and just makes you want to throw your hands up and not use it. So yeah, I think that there's a nice chain of events that needs to happen, but it needs momentum and it needs the community to say we need this really badly, and then people with some influence, maybe myself and others, can go to these data brokers and say this is needed for the community, and this is how we get things done. This is how we save lives and save money in the end. But again, it needs community effort and backup and use cases towards that goal.
And just carrying on from what you were saying, Alex, I've been fighting the same battle with the Queensland state government, with Andrew's help as well. We did get some progress that seems to have sort of stopped again. They are trying to look at things again. That started in February last year.
Hello. I think everyone in this room is aware of the term geo-AI, and we're seeing a lot of that happening at the moment. What has been your observations in the OSM community in particular with these new tools that are coming around, things like segment anything being applied? And yeah, just what are your observations? What are some things you notice that are really great? What are some things that are perhaps not so great that you've noticed?
We need more access to government data, as we're just talking. The OSM licence requirements seem to scare a lot of government departments away. They don't understand ODBL, and they have, a lot of them have this seeming fear that if they sign a waiver to say that they agree to OSM using their data under ODBL, that cancels all their existing rights. They can't do anything else with their data. That seems to be a problem with a lot of government departments. And what we've found what Al found in Queensland is that each department owns their own data. So Department of Main Roads owns this part. National Parks owns this part. Main Roads will say, yes, you can use this. National Park can say, you can use that, but not this. And it's a nightmare.
I think Esri is nearing 100 geo-AI packages on Living Atlas that you can download and then bring into your environment to run. And it's been wonderful for largely North America or the US, where a lot of that training data that goes into segment anything or feature extraction models, we don't build the models, we're just importing the open source and link back to the code that we develop it from. But try to run an agricultural field extraction that's trained on American data in somewhere like Africa, and it's not going to do so hot. So that's been one of the biggest challenges, is allowing users to be able to be empowered to change and label their own data, create their own training and testing data sets, and not have this bias towards the global north and where the data is originally trained from. So with OpenStreetMaps, that's true also of roads. I've been in Australia for 3 weeks and met with a lot of state and federal agencies, and I've heard that our road feature extraction model is having a hard time in Australian red dirt, where it works actually quite well in red dirt in Nevada, for example. We've mapped all the hiking trails around Las Vegas, but just something about the spectral signature and shadowing of Australian dirt it's not working. So I think this geographic bias is a big part of it, and putting that tool set back in the hands of people who know their local areas best is hopefully the way forward.
Very good. Now, we're all in Auckland next year, hopefully. We're all on stage. Where do you see changes going to happen in the next 12 months? Graeme? You're going to have more members of the foundation, are you not?
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, yes. That is what we're hoping to do, start getting the OSM Oceania up with more members and also getting more members from the whole region onto the as OSMF members, which helps the entire region look more important, for want of a better word, and you can say, yes, look, there's that many people mapping in this area. Oh, okay, we might take some interest in it. It's just a matter of tracking down those people that do actually map in OSM.
Lani, where do you want to see mapping on the islands going?
So we've talked during the break and we're planning, so we'll be teaming up after this conference to actually work on that goal, and we'll probably update you next year, same time in Auckland.
And Natasha?
Probably to carry on with your point, I think also just more members into this space, particularly also then sort of what we consider the next generation. We've put in quite a bit of effort of going to universities, speaking with students who are studying spatial data, but on the curriculum is not OpenStreetMap or open source as such. So providing that connection for them, getting them starting to look at the data, the benefits of it, and then themselves starting to map and doing their own analysis from that, I think is definitely where we see growing in the next year.
And Kate, where do you see this all heading?
I'm just trying to make it through the next 12 hours with the US election.
Good luck.
But I think towards the conversation we're having, I would love to see a lot more analysis-ready commercial data available and open for the OpenStreetMap community to do the best work possible and create new and innovative ways to map the world.
And we'd also like that imagery updated sort of on about a weekly basis.
You got it, Grant. You said you can make people disappear. There's someone in the US.
On the ground.
You got it.
Any further questions out there?
Couple more.
Couple more, yep.
So just to follow up on the OpenStreetMap Foundation, are you looking for individuals to join the foundation, or are you looking to partner with government agencies, departments, potentially commercial entities?
Membership is more for individuals, but there is also the option for corporate membership. Yeah, so it's open to both. And a very simple process for joining as an associate member of the foundation. I think it's £15 is the membership fee, or if you have mapped 42 days in the last 12 months, you can also get a free membership. So how they came up with 42 days, nobody really knows. We were blaming Douglas Adams.
I think we're done. I'd like to really thank Kate, Lani, Graeme and Natasha for their time. We're going to give you a little bit more time back. I think the short talks are going to be a little bit earlier, and that means you can get out, enjoy the sun before the wind comes in, and have an early dinner. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.